The Last Knight's Oath. On a misty dawn in Camelot, King Arthur stood at the edge of the battlefield, his armor battered, and his cloak heavy with blood and sweat. The once glorious banners of the Round Table fluttered weakly in the cold wind, remnants of a shattered dream. Beside him stood Sir Bedivere, the last of his knights. The others had fallen, Sir Gawain in a duel with Mordred, Sir Launcelot exiled by his own sins, and the others scattered or slain. Mordred's rebellion had left the kingdom in ruin, and Arthur's heart weighed heavy with the burden of his choices. As the light of day broke over the horizon, Arthur leaned on Excalibur, the blade that had brought him both triumph and tragedy. His gaze turned to the distant silhouette of Mordred's army, readying for a final charge. "Bedivere," Arthur said, his voice hoarse but resolute, "the end is near. I feel it in my bones. But before I meet my fate, I must entrust you with one final task." The knight knelt, his own armor cracked and sword dulled from countless battles. "Command me, my king, and I shall obey." Arthur held out Excalibur, its blade shimmering faintly as if alive. "Take this sword to the Lake of Avalon, return it to the Lady of the Lake. Its power must not fall into unworthy hands." Bedivere hesitated, his fingers trembling as they brushed against the hilt. "But, sire, without Excalibur, how will you fight?" Arthur smiled faintly. "This battle is not for swords, it is for honor. My fate is sealed, but the legacy of Camelot must endure." Reluctantly, Bedivere took the blade and disappeared into the mists. The final battle. With Excalibur gone, Arthur faced Mordred with only a simple spear. The two met in the heart of the battlefield, their forces clashing around them like a storm. Mordred, with his cruel grin and eyes burning with ambition, lunged first. Arthur parried and struck, their weapons biting through the chaos. Finally, with a desperate thrust, Arthur drove the spear through Mordred's chest. But in his death throes, Mordred drove his sword into Arthur's side. As the battlefield fell silent, Arthur collapsed, the world dimming around him. The return to Avalon Bedivere returned to find his king dying under the spreading branches of a great oak. "Sire, I have done as you asked. The Lady of the Lake has reclaimed Excalibur." Arthur nodded weakly. "Then my duty is fulfilled. Help me to the water's edge." Together, they walked to the shores of the Lake of Avalon. A barge materialized from the mist, rowed by cloaked figures whose faces were hidden. Bedivere wept openly as he helped his king onto the vessel. "Do not mourn, Bedivere," Arthur whispered, "for I go to Avalon, where I shall rest until Britain calls for me again. When that time comes, I shall rise." The barge drifted into the mist, and as it disappeared, the morning sun broke through, casting golden light over the lake. Bedivere stood alone, vowing to protect the memory of the greatest king who ever lived. And so, the legend of King Arthur was sealed in the hearts of all who heard it, a tale of a king who would return when his people needed him most,